Tonight, a frightening crash landing at Canada's busiest airport.
Drop it! Come on!
The terrifying moments in the cabin after a Delta plane flips upside down.
Yo, I was just on this plane.
What survivors and the air traffic control audio are revealing.
Stressed, nervous, shaky still.
Toppled travel plans and warnings of delays for passengers.
There are just lots and lots of folks at the airport not knowing what to do next.
The deep freeze in the west as eastern Canada digs out from a major storm. What's in the forecast?
It's crazy, right up to my windows.
Plus, housing construction is building momentum, but the key factor threatening to knock it down. And Canada seals its spot in a fiery on-ice face-off.
Scores! Connor McDavid!
The big moments before a final showdown against the U.S.
CTV National News with Omar Sachedina.
Good evening. How a plane with 80 people on board, 22 of them Canadian, crashed moments after getting the all clear to land is now a key question in the investigation of Delta Flight 4819.
Toronto. We just landed. Our plane crashed.
This was the dramatic scene at Toronto's Pearson Airport after the plane landed around 2:30 Eastern this afternoon, after taking off from Minneapolis for the roughly 2-hour-long journey. No fatalities, but at least 17 people were injured. CTV's Adrian Gabriel starts us off tonight from Pearson Airport with a look inside that plane. Adrian.
Omar, the flickering lights behind me mark the spot where an active investigation is taking place tonight. Flights resumed at about 5 this evening. That's approximately 3 hours after the crash and the ground stoppage here at Pearson Airport. While there were no fatalities, things could have been much worse.
Everything, drop it! Come on!
Passenger video from inside Delta Airlines Flight 4819 shows the chaos in the cabin.
Holy
A scramble to escape onto the snowy runway after the crash landing at Toronto's Pearson International Airport.
Oh, I was just on this plane.
Just seconds before, the plane was cleared to land. Here's the audio from air traffic control.
Clear to land, 23, Endeavour, 4819. This airplane just crashed in 23.
We just landed. Our plane crashed. It's upside down.
Life flight 1 minute back, just so you are, there's people outside walking around the aircraft there. Yeah, we've got it. The aircraft's upside down and burning.
The crash sending plumes of black smoke shooting into the sky. The wings of the CRJ-900 sheared off, and the body of the aircraft turned completely upside down.
Toronto. We just landed. Our plane crashed. It's upside down.
And when we hit, it was just a super hard, like I hit the ground and the plane went sideways. And I believe we skidded like on our side and then flipped over on our back. Where we ended up, there was like a big fireball out this left side of the plane. And then everybody was just like, get out, get out, get out. We could smell like jet fuel. Even now I smell like jet fuel.
Air and ground ambulances raced to the crash site. After initial reports that multiple passengers were in critical condition, the Greater Toronto Airport Authority tonight sharing an update that none of the 17 injured are listed as critical. The Canadian-made Bombardier jet is a workhorse for short-haul flights worldwide. A question for investigators now is how and why did the plane lose at least one wing on landing, then flip over, causing jet fuel to spill onto the snowy runway. They'll also be looking at if weather, particularly gusty winds, could have played a factor. In a statement, Delta says our primary focus is taking care of those impacted. The flight was carrying a total of 80 people that included 76 passengers and 4 crew.
Toronto's Airport Authority has warned passengers there could be delays for multiple days as 2 runways remain closed for the investigation, which is being led by Canada's Transportation Safety Board, with American investigators on their way here to Toronto to assist. Omar.
A lot of questions. Adrian Gobriel at Toronto's Pearson Airport, which is also where we find CTV's Kamel Karamali, who was supposed to be leaving for a trip today on a flight that didn't take off. And Kamel, you spoke with other travelers who were struggling to find out what was going on. What did they tell you?
Omar, confusion and chaos. Airlines giving mixed messages, leaving passengers with no clear idea whether they should stay or go. You can see the delayed flights across the board and lineups at a near standstill for hours. Passengers hoping they would be flying out eventually. Some were even told they could check in their bags, only to have it all turned around.
They canceled it and then they rescheduled me for a flight that is 2 days from now.
While flights initially canceled, suddenly back up and on time on the departures board.
A few people were saying that it was canceled, and then we're getting text messages saying that it's on time.
Caught up in the confusion, Manminder Singh, who is on hold with Air Canada. Any luck?
No. It's just no luck right now.
He was told his flight would see a 3-hour delay, but it's been much longer. Are you afraid it might get canceled?
Yeah, I'm really afraid because I have to go to India. It's my brother's wedding.
Countless stories here. When havoc struck, airlines appeared to have responded with disarray.
What a mess that everything is, very unorganized.
Some airlines started allowing flights to take off around 5 p.m., but there's now a massive backlog of passengers looking to rebook flights. Some won't get to leave for days. Omar.
All right, Kamel, thank you. Today's crash is the latest in a string of aviation disasters in just the last 3 weeks. In late January, 67 people died in Washington, D.C. in the first major fatal commercial plane crash in the U.S. since 2009. Days later, an air ambulance carrying 6 people crashed in Philadelphia and killed everyone on board. Less than a week after that, 10 people died in a crash in Alaska. And just days ago, the 78-year-old pilot of a private plane died after crashing into another aircraft on a runway in Scottsdale, Arizona. As for this afternoon's crash, the Toronto Airport Authority's fire chief said late this evening the runway was dry and there were no crosswind conditions, but weather will almost certainly be part of the investigation. And for millions of Canadians in the east and the west, dealing with the deep freeze was a massive challenge. Here's CTV's Sarah Plowman.
Winter weighs a lot lately as layers of snowstorms pile up.
It's crazy. Right up to my windows.
The snow that's hammered Toronto these past 8 days is as much as what fell all of last winter.
We expect that snow removal may take up to 3 weeks.
Slowing transit and stranding drivers.
I can only get one of the wheels spinning.
In Montreal, 3/4 of a meter fell in 4 days, a new record. Add a blustery wind to the mix.
I feel like Lewis and Clark on the First Frontier, like I'm fighting for my life. I'm going to like a cafe to study because all the libraries are closed.
This giant mound of snow in a parking lot is symbolic of what we're seeing across the region. We've seen snowfall after snowfall with little reprieve and fewer places to put it. We've seen this act before, a blizzard that brings out the symphony of snow removal.
It's good for the paycheck.
But bad for travelers in the Maritimes dealing with delays and cancellations. Some drove 2 hours after their first flight was canceled.
Just went online and checked and our flight is delayed again.
Halifax is coated not in snow but ice following freezing rain. Many stores are sold out of salt.
Every second phone call is looking for salt or sand, anything to put on ice to melt it.
Each with their own hurdle to lighten winter's load. Sarah Plowman, CTV News, Fredericton.
I'm Allison Bamford at possibly one of the coldest Jenga games ever played during one of the coldest winter festivals Saskatoon has ever hosted.
Still getting used to cold weather, you know, it's a lot different than Ireland.
We were here last year and we thought, why not try it again? And she loves the slide.
Today's extreme cold warnings canceled most of the festival's outdoor activities, but couldn't keep everyone inside.
Got a dog, so we gotta go out.
It's pretty manageable right now, even though it's minus 40.
Just what it's like living here.
So it's not too cold for you?
I didn't say that.
Overnight temperatures dipped as low as -48 in some areas.
17 locations in Saskatchewan set daily minimum temperature records.
Freezing batteries.
Just want to start.
And leaving some stranded.
We're only here in town for the day, so we're trying to get back home.
But what's bad for drivers has been great for business.
We make money off it, obviously, but it'd be nice to warm up a little bit.
Most of Saskatchewan, Alberta, and Manitoba are dealing with extreme cold warnings. In Winnipeg, some tried carving the cold away, but wind chill values in the -30s didn't stop the city's largest winter festival.
We've got snow sculptures that are staying, so I think it's good. Just got to bundle up.
Coming off last winter's El Nino, parts of the prairies haven't seen this type of extended cold in a few years. Temperatures that have many wishing for spring. Omar?
Alison Bamford in Saskatoon tonight, where an extreme cold warning is in effect. And for a look at the forecast, let's bring in CTV meteorologist Kaylin Mitchell. And Kaylin, tell us how long these temperatures are going to last.
Thank you, Omar. Well, there's still maybe some lingering impacts from the latest winter storm through parts of Ontario, Quebec, and Atlantic Canada for the morning commute for tomorrow. Because of the cold and gusty wind around that low pressure system, the fresh snow it brought in, there are likely to be some areas of blowing and drifting snow and a risk of snow squalls off of the Great Lakes in southern Ontario and a risk of some localized snow squalls for parts of Atlantic Canada. Speaking of those winds, they do diminish as we move through tonight and through tomorrow through parts of Ontario and Quebec, but remain high and gusty in Atlantic Canada. There, they are expected to diminish by the time we get into Wednesday morning. Outlook for this week, thankfully, the weather pattern calming down a little bit. Large area of high pressure making its way out of the prairies should steer the next storm system south and east of much of the country. Exception could be eastern areas of Newfoundland at the end of this week. In the meantime, off in the west, it's all about that bitterly cold air. Extreme cold warnings in effect, but some improvement when it comes to that wind chill expected throughout this week. Southern areas of Alberta through the middle part of this week, southern areas of Saskatchewan by the end of the week, and some improvement in the wind chill in Manitoba into the upcoming weekend. Omar.
Kaylin, thank you. Heavy snow and whiteout conditions are an issue south of the border as well. More than a dozen vehicles were involved in a crash on a major New York State highway this afternoon. The U.S. and Russia are just hours away from holding talks on ending the war in Ukraine in the most significant meeting between Moscow and Washington in years. But the negotiations will not include Ukraine. Here's CTV's Alex Karpa.
Key European leaders gather for an emergency meeting in Paris to prepare a response to the White House's talks with Russia on ending the war in Ukraine.
Europeans willing to step up, getting positively engaged, willing to help out in Ukraine post a peace deal, including with troops if necessary, but clearly with an American backup.
This comes ahead of tomorrow's talks between American and Russian officials in the Saudi capital that would likely set the stage for a meeting between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz saying the European Union and U.S. must not be divided in Ukraine peace talks. Shortly before hosting his European counterparts, French President Emmanuel Macron spoke with Trump, but no details were revealed.
I think the Americans want to find out where are the Russian positions, and then they're going to go to the Ukrainians and say, where can we make a deal here?
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky confirmed Monday that he is traveling to Saudi Arabia on Wednesday, though he stressed his visit is not linked to the Russia-U.S. peace talks. Zelensky confirmed Ukraine was not invited to participate in upcoming talks.
I will never accept any decisions between the United States and Russia about Ukraine.
Trump told reporters Saturday that Ukraine, quote, will be involved in talks, but what that all entails remains to be seen.
Ukraine is going to have to make some concessions, but you don't negotiate at the beginning by giving away all your bargaining chips, which Trump seems to have done for Russia.
Putin has demanded that Ukraine withdraw its troops from the 4 regions Russia has illegally annexed since September 2022, and demands that Ukraine never joins NATO as part of any peace talks, demands which Ukraine, of course, has rejected. Alex Karpa, CTV News, Winnipeg.
Coming up.
The Conservatives, for all intents and purposes, have told Canadians Mark Carney is the one to beat.
Which contenders cleared the final financial hurdle in the Liberal leadership race? Plus, Canada chases down a rivalry rematch at the Four Nations face-off. U.S. President Donald Trump's tariff threat was front and center at the second and final Ontario leaders debate, with Doug Ford's opponents condemning the premier for calling an election in the middle of a trade war.
As we face this big threat from Donald Trump, something we've never faced quite to this extent before, Doug Ford quit his job.
For me, leadership is about vision. It's also about priorities, and it's also about having integrity. It's about stepping up when you need to see something done.
I would not abandon my job at a time when we should be coming together to show strength through unity to push back against these tariff threats.
No matter if he puts a tariff on us today, tomorrow, next month, next year, you know, it would devastate our economy. There's one person on that stage that's going to protect your families, protect jobs, and protect businesses and protect communities, and that's myself.
There were several heated moments, including an exchange over Ford's proposal to build a massive tunnel beneath Highway 401.
Doug, a fantasy tunnel. How dumb is that, Doug? Doug, this tunnel is a fantasy. This is a fantasy project.
So is our subway,
it is a
right?
40-year project. It won't be built in my lifetime.
The Ontario election is just 10 days away. This is deadline day for the 5 Liberal leadership contenders to hand over the final installment of the $350,000 entrance fee to be in the race. CTV's Rachel Aiello has more on who made it across the finish line and the hurdles ahead.
With 20 days to go, the lineup of candidates looking to replace Justin Trudeau is solidifying. Representatives from the campaigns of Mark Carney, Chrystia Freeland, Karina Gold, Frank Baylis, and Ruby Dalla have all confirmed their final entrance fee installments have been or will be made by the end of the day. And while it's a 5-person race at this stage, the rival Conservatives are already honing in on who they see as the frontrunner.
The Conservatives, for all intents and purposes, have told Canadians Mark Carney is the one to beat.
It got support from...
Still working the U.S. airwaves over the weekend, today Freeland unveiled her 10-point housing plan in a statement. Freeland is promising to cut municipal red tape and tie the number of new immigrants to the housing supply. Baylis also released on paper today his plan for Canadian energy security. Candidates will be squaring off on their stances on policies such as these in Montreal next week. The party is holding 2 leadership debates, in French first on Monday and then an English debate on Tuesday. In such a condensed race, political analysts say the stakes are high for perceived top contenders Freeland and Carney to strike the right tone.
Both of them are going to have to keep it really street level without looking like they're in a street fight.
By meeting today's payment deadline, all 5 candidates will be eligible to be on the ballot and on stage for the debates, which the party announced today will be moderated by a pair of former journalists. Omar?
All right, Rachel Aiello in Ottawa tonight. Thank you. Still ahead. Canada's housing construction is up. What neighboring threat could send it crashing down? The latest numbers show housing starts are up, but a trade war is clouding the outlook for home builders and home buyers. CTV's Paul Hollingsworth reports.
Home construction rates continue to climb, but trade concerns have caused uncertainty to hover over the Canadian housing market.
There's a need for more housing.
The annual pace of new housing construction projects, factoring in the seasonal adjusted annual rate, jumped 3% in January compared to the previous month. The 6-month overall national trend declined 2.5% last month. Communities with at least 10,000 people saw a 7% increase.
The good news is that housing starts haven't declined. The glass half empty part of it is that housing starts haven't increased as much as the federal government would have hoped.
In Canada's 3 largest cities, Montreal posted a 112% increase in housing starts compared to 12 months earlier. Vancouver was up 37%. Toronto dropped 41%. The sluggish condominium market has caused an overall slowdown in Toronto.
So there's a lot less projects that are, just breaking ground.
There is currently a wait-and-see approach at play in our country. If higher tariffs are imposed, that could lead to another round of inflation. Inflation could prompt the Bank of Canada to raise interest rates, which might discourage potential home buyers.
It's going to be very different depending on the regions. If some regions, maybe there's some heavy reliance on certain industries, for example, that could have an impact on unemployment.
A key factor that could cause a slowdown in the housing construction and resale market in Canada. Paul Hollingsworth, CTV News, Halifax.
Still ahead, how Canada finished off Finland to set up a rematch with a familiar foe. A highly anticipated hockey rematch has come to fruition at the Four Nations face-off between two bitter rivals. Here's CTV's Geneviève Beauchemin on whether Canada and the United States can reignite fireworks in the championship final.
Expectations don't win games, had said Team Canada's coach before this match.
Turns back, scores! Connor David!
But on this must-win Monday, the country's hockey stars lived up to the hopes and dreams of Maple Leaf-waving fans. They beat Finland and netted a ticket to the final game Thursday against arch-rival Team USA.
We feel like we could beat those guys, and we plan on playing a little better Thursday.
Early on against Finland, big names Connor McDavid and Nathan MacKinnon delivered goals 46 seconds apart. Team Canada added another 2 goals long before the halfway mark. That had fans making plans for the final Thursday. They were ready for a rematch to ease the sting of the loss to the U.S. on Saturday, a fierce battle that played out on Flag Day, with geopolitics, the booing of the American national anthem as a backdrop, and hockey bragging rights on the line.
Just the pride and wanting to kind of, you feel like the Canada's always should have the best team, we should always win. And so, losing Saturday is a tough, close game, but we want to be the best, obviously.
But in the closing minutes of the game, Finland took a run at making the final, scoring 3 times.
Finland again! It's a 1-goal game!
And that gave its fans hope.
Where are you from?
Finland.
Finland?
No.
Oh. So now you're excited?
Yeah.
Back in it?
Yeah.
Did you expect that? Did you think you had lost?
No, of course not. That's,
so now it's
that's surprise.
Until Sidney Crosby once again played hero for Canada. And now the stage is set for a made-for-TV showdown against the USA. And now fans in sports bars are gearing up for the big final face-off on Thursday. Geneviève Beauchemin, CTV News, Montreal.
A few days to go, and that's a snapshot of this Monday for all of us at CTV National News. Thank you for watching. Good night, and see you tomorrow.